Good afternoon and welcome to this session of arbitration, how to make it work. The topic is quite apt. We all know the act is there. Everything is in place, but how do we make it work? That's the issue that we are going to discuss today, and I'm joined by my co-panelists who are highly experienced. Just to set the tone, we all know that the Arbitration Act was enacted in 1996 to consolidate the domestic arbitration, the international arbitration, foreign awards, even to define what conciliation was. It was the 176th report of the Law Commission that led to certain amendments to the Act in the 2015, 2019, and 2021. In 2023, we had a high-powered committee led by Mr. T.K. Vishwanathan, the former Law Secretary of India, to suggest further amendments to the Arbitration Act. And we all know that the report is there, but it's still not been made public, if I'm right. But I think we all know what the takeaways are. And as we discuss the Act today, we're going to look at also some very critical challenges that are there, how to address them, how to make it more effective, how to make it work for our clients, business houses, etc. And most importantly, the not so big businesses who also have disputes, who have arbitration clauses, but it may not be really as shall I say, cost effective, which kind of pinches them. So what are the thoughts? So let me just start with Vaibhav. And Vaibhav, would you like to give your comments to the topic and, anything that you may want to say with respect to these issues?
Thank you, Mr. Barry, and thank you everybody for having me here. At the outset, I must point out that, I was, as a lawyer coming up, not someone who had the highest opinion of how arbitrations were being conducted in the country. Lots of experiences over there, lots of awards which came about, left a lot to be desired. However, and then, at least before the amendments, you had the appellate mechanisms, you had an appeal and a stay for the asking, at least till about a decade back, which effectively ruined the entire purpose of the Arbitration Act. The expeditious disposal, the cost effectiveness was more a myth than reality. Having said that, in the last 4 to 5 years, at least in our High Court, in the Delhi High Court, I believe the judges there have taken a consistent view. An appeal is not, a stay or a note is not for the asking anymore at all. And even if you're getting a stay, you're going to have either a full deposit or a substantial deposit that's going to be made. Which very often, in fact, deters the opposite side from filing an appeal unless they're very, very sure about the fact that they're strong on their merits. Secondly, even the scope, whether you look at Sangyon, whether you look at any of the developments that have happened, the amendments that have happened in 34, etc., the scope which has been narrowed down now for appeal is to a large extent being enforced, at least by the Delhi High Court. And I won't take the liberty of talking about other high courts as much, but as far as the Delhi High Court is concerned, it is not for the asking anymore. We have to push it through. And within that very narrow scope that is there. And number 3, the timelines. The strict enforceability of the timelines within the arbitration process itself are being largely adhered to. Maybe with the 6-month extension that is provided there, but with between 12 to 18 months, 9 out of 10 times we are seeing the awards come. So I think we are moving in the right direction. Of course, lots of challenges still to be surmounted, but things do seem to be looking up, and I'm quite optimistic of the way things are going now.
Thank you, Vaibhav. Kanika, would you like to have some suggestions or remarks on the topic, the challenges that are there? Any suggestions with respect to improvement? A broad overall view, just opening remarks.
Sure, thank you. I think, so we largely look at, arbitrations regarding the construction and infrastructure sectors. And more than often personally, my objective is to look at the whole process from a client's perspective rather than the legal perspective. Yes, in the last 5 years, have we seen a good progression in the arbitration landscape? Absolutely. But I don't think we're there yet. I do see clients, knowing that in the construction sector, we see most of the projects ending up in a dispute. And we also deal with a number of international clients, trying to understand the market and how the legal procedure works in India. I think the apprehensions that we still face are concerning the time that it's going to take, how indefinite the process is going to be. It also largely depends before which court the matter is going to end up at in India. And as lawyers, we find it a bit difficult sometimes to give them a precise timeline that this is how much time the matter is going to take, irrespective of what the legislation says. So I think from a very practical perspective, we try our best to comfort the clients, owing to the progression that the Act has, gone through, the progression that the courts have also gone through. But in my opinion, I think we are still away from being a stabilized arbitration economy.
Thank you. Ishna, can we have your perspective on how you look at the Act and how it works or does not work, the challenges that you think are there?
Thank you. I think what Mr. Gagar and Kanika have said, I think I very much agree with that. But adding on, I feel one aspect which is third-party litigation funding could be a welcome step in the arbitration sector for us to resolve the cost effectiveness and also in order to ensure that they're not frivolous claims by one of the parties entering into arbitration, so that because third party litigation funding has a lot of there's an aspect where it is assessed whether the claim would go ahead. I mean, on considering the issue that Kanika raised, that it's not cost effective and the timelines are very flexible. Considering that could be one factor from a client's perspective and for small sectors to consider. And I think one matter which was of Sare Gurugram, where in their arbitration they had taken a third-party litigation funding from Legal Pay. I think that worked out very well for them. And but we still, it's just a start on third-party litigation funding. The second, in terms of timeline, I think the Arbitration and Conciliation Bill of 2024 is quite an attractive bill, though of course it brings out an appellate, so-called appellate forum above the arbitral tribunal. But at the same time, it kind of puts an end to all the timelines by only allowing parts of the award which have been set aside to be only looked into by, at the second step. So I think in order for the Arbitration Conciliation Act to fully work and for India to become maybe one of the most attractive seats for arbitration hub, I think the 2024 amendment in the third-party litigation funding could be steps which can help us to bring in that.
Thank you, Ishna. Why don't we now move over to an academic? Your views on the topic, your opening remarks on the topic.
My name is Ranjit Matthew. As an academic, I think I am here to represent that sector wherein the initial part where the theoretical framework is being given to the students, but at the same time I feel it is not only the theoretical framework but also the skill set that needs to be given. For the practical side of all of it can be discussed by the lawyers, but to empower the students, and not only the students, but also the young lawyers, academic institutions should be actively participating in the process of the lawmaking, how to, in contributing to the existing literature too. But I think there is a lacuna there, wherein
Yeah.
law schools are more into traditional style of teaching where section numbers, case laws needs to be taught, and not the drafting skills, not understanding what are the points to be looked into while a particular agreement is being drafted, especially arbitration agreement. What is the difference between proper law, the governing law, the place of arbitration, the seat of arbitration? Students tend to understand the theory side of it and not the practicality of it. If that can be captured at the academic level before they enter into the industry, the learning curve for them to actually make arbitration more effective would be reduced. So that's from my side.
Yeah, thank you. Moving on to now, again, Vaibhav. We all know about public policy, the unruly horse, as it has been referred to. How do you look at the scope of public policy as a ground to challenge awards? What exactly is happening on the ground? Does there need to be, a right balance? And you have a minute only.
So, unruly horse, you hit the nail on the head. It's been coined as such for a good reason. It's a vast, expansive definition, right? Public policy, even though, again, the definition has been narrowed down in 2019 now through SsangYong judgment. You're back to the framework where public policy really refers to the public policy of India, and in a narrow spectrum, it's got to be something very inherently against the conscience of the courts, which would then entail the court to intervene. I mean, if you look at SsangYong, it's saying very clearly, in very exceptional circumstances, public policy is really going to be brought in. Having said that, I believe there's also a large interplay between public policy and patent illegality, because at times both, have an overlap. Let's look at it as an example of principle of natural justice being violated during the course of an arbitration proceeding. That would come into public policy, and that would also be a patent illegality. The scope of public policy, whether it's going to be kept at this narrow spectrum currently, I think the judicial system is definitely moving towards it, and as I said earlier in my opening remarks as well, the courts are narrowing down the scope of appeals tremendously. Having said that, and I know I'm running out of time, one observation of mine is, I find it very difficult, and I know this is a controversial statement, I find it very difficult to understand that when you have an appellate mechanism, a first appeal and a second appeal in civil courts, where there are trained judges who are delivering the judgment, you have narrowed down the scope of appeals and arbitrations, for good reason perhaps, but there is very little oversight on that, and very often the judgments could be worrying, but there is little interference. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Vaibhav. And we joined by Arvind Nair now. Can we have your perspective on challenges to enforcement of awards and how you look at it?
I think challenges to enforcement, just whatever I caught off my dear friend Vaibhav, I think I genuinely believe, and he set the tone by saying he's going to say something controversial. So I'm, being a few years older to him, I'm going to take that controversy forward by saying that as long as we have the appeal mechanism, the section 34 and the section 37, no matter what narrow parameters we draw up, no matter how narrow the guidelines are laid down by our Honorable Supreme Court, as long as we are before benches where there is any discretion that comes into play, we are never going to have any sort of constant mechanism. Maybe it's time to think, and I'm just sort of throwing the debate open. It's not, I don't think I'm suitably qualified to venture a clear opinion on this, but I think maybe it's time to consider having special courts for one single challenge to an arbitration award. like we have IPR benches. Maybe we do have on the original side benches which look at arbitrations. And I think perhaps it's time, if we actually have to sort of align with the rest of the world at the speed of our enforcement, it's time to reduce somehow drastically the time that it takes for an award to become final. Whether it's to restrict the number of challenges, whether it's to put it in a time frame, there are several options that we can ponder over. But till we do that, I don't think we are going to get to a point where we'll have expeditious execution of arbitration awards.
Thank you, Arvind. Ishna, would you like to throw some light on the kind of challenges that small businesses face when it comes to either running arbitrations or even for that matter, challenging awards or not challenging awards for that matter?
Thank you. I think small businesses have, the biggest difficulty that they get is in terms of resources. And like I said earlier, I think, again, I feel third-party litigation funding is what will help us. And like Mr. Nair said, the timelines and the 34, I think all of that is being considered by the legislature, where they're coming up with the appellate tribunal. So there is surely, coming back to the question, there is surely a lack of resource, lack of knowledge, lack of awareness. I think day in, day out, I think everybody would agree, we see arbitrations of disputes which are not even arbitrable, going to arbitration proceedings for clients where they are not guided well, they are not aware that these disputes couldn't have even gone for arbitration. So I think there are a lot of challenges in terms of knowledge, awareness and resources. So considering all of that, considering the awareness bit is also covered in terms of the opinion through third-party litigation funding, I think could be the most attractive feature for arbitration to go through for these small entities as well.
Thank you, Ishna. Kanika, what about institutional arbitrations, and how do you look at institutions, so institutional versus ad hoc arbitrations? Is that better? Is that the way to go?
Yes, as a system between ad hoc and institutional arbitration, whether it is anywhere globally, it would always be better for a client to go ahead with institutional arbitration. Processes are more streamlined, and the level of accountability is much higher. And I think there's a lot of less logistical headache that a client has to go through. But I think when it comes to the Indian jurisdiction, I don't think the whole framework of institutional arbitration has been put well in place yet. I know that there have been efforts made across centers, across institutions in India in the last 2 or 3 years. So yes, it is a good step that has been taken. But if we look at institutions that have been established decades ago, otherwise globally, they function very differently. It's not that the arbitral institution is meant to just plainly provide a panel of arbitrators or provide for a venue. It's also supposed to ease the entire process of an arbitration. And we are seeing that in a lot of contracts between private companies and public entities of the government in India, there is increasingly the incorporation of arbitral institutions and to drive arbitrations towards institutional arbitrations. But I think the role that is played by institutions in India is yet to be established in a way that it actually eases the procedure. But ideally, that would be the best way to move forward with matters.
Thank you. Professor Matthew Jacob, I know you talked about bridging the gap between practice of law and law as a subject that is taught in faculty. How do you suggest, it's a very valid point that you've raised, but how do you suggest that be brought up, and how do you suggest we can really vouch for it?
Actually, we need to have more experiential learning. One point is that we should be able to have practitioners coming in to teach drafting, and instead of making them write research papers, because beyond one point, research papers do give them an analytical thought, but the skill set that is required of drafting, that needs to be also be equally be assessed. Not only that, we talk about moot courts. At the same time, mock arbitration activities, that will also bring in or enhance the style or the requisite skill sets. Because if everything is being looked at as an adversarial system, it tends to have its own negative points also. So one is that, and moreover, I feel that practitioners and all the arbitration institutions needs to tie up with the educational, legal education centers to make the curriculum more relevant rather than going by section wise. Especially I feel that the understanding of infrastructure arbitration, sector wise arbitration requirements are not being tackled in the curriculum many a times. So if that kind of rigorous curriculum change and a kind of competency rather than merely knowledge based, skill based and competency based curriculum is being developed, academics would be also be able to bring forth a change in practicality also.
Thank you. That's a valid point.